Hi everyone, my name is Claire. Welcome back to my channel, and today is going to be a short and sweet review slash recommendation for the last book that I read, that being Kiersten White's The Guinevere Deception. Now, I picked this up in Barnes & Noble back in December, and I went in there with no intention of picking up a book. Now, it turns out this author has a lot of books and various series under her belt. She's mostly known, from what I can tell, for doing retellings, but I've never heard of her before. Really, it just is such an absurdly gorgeous cover that I caught my eye and begged me to read the inside of the dust jacket. And once I started getting into Camelot and the Legend of King Arthur and Merlin, I was like, I am sold. And so I read it recently and I love it. I love it, love it, love it. So before I get ahead of myself and start really diving into this is going to be a spoiler-free review for the most part, although I think I'm gonna have like a little something right at the end, but I will warn you guys before I get to that point. So if you want to see why I recommend this book so much, keep on watching. So The Guinevere Deception. What is it about? Why do I like it so much? Like I mentioned, it has a King Arthur, Merlin, Camelot, Knights of the Round Table take. But the main character, the eyes that we are viewing the world from, is Guinevere. And there is something mysterious and very interesting going on with her. And at least at the beginning of the book, she is set to marry King Arthur, but she has a mysterious and magical background and is actually sent to protect Arthur, not just be his queen. She's young and she comes from a place of extreme naivety, especially about Camelot and just the way that Arthur runs his court, or court in general. It's kind of a fish out of water situation, which is not an uncommon thing, but it just continues to be a storytelling mechanism that I actually really enjoy, because it's such an easy way to ground the audience in a land that might be unfamiliar to us as well. Now, this book has kind of sparked an interest in Camelot and King Arthur lore for me, but previous to it, other than the bare minimum, I don't know anything about it. So I found a lot of these things, a lot of the world building in this book, to be really fascinating. It's about like 30 pages, so a pretty quick read, and the way it's written, it's third person, close third, very close to Guinevere. There's a little bit of an old-timey cadence to the writing, but I think that just adds to the world building in the sense that we are in a different time, a different place, very medieval. There's such a clever but creepy thing that keeps happening at the end of certain chapters, where it switches over to this different mysterious perspective. And while very simple, there were some things that were said that actually creeped me out. I don't know, it was so effective at that. I found the journey that Guinevere to be on, both emotionally and physically, exciting. It was one of those books where every time I read it, I was just so content to be in that world, that even if there was a little bit of a lull in the story, there definitely were points that were not as exciting or interesting as others, but I just was so happy to be there. I also really liked the way that King Arthur and his main knights were depicted. And King Arthur there's just such a love and a reverence and a respect for that character. I think sometimes when you go into retellings, you never know exactly how much the author is going to try to flip things on their heads. That is something I did know, is that Arthur almost godlike in how much people loved him and were devoted to him. And partially because he was seen as a figure that was so kind and so just and so fair. But you never know if an author is going to be like, ooh, I'm going to be edgy, and Arthur's actually going to be an evil person. This author clearly respected who King Arthur was. There's something about that that I found to be very refreshing. I threw a picture of this book, because again, the cover is just so gorgeous, up on my Instagram, and I mentioned that this read really reminds me of the other YA retelling, The Wrath and the Dawn. And that book has an Indian flair, and well, that book is definitely very different from this one. They're different stories, different parts of the world. Their female protagonists are not badass in a hardcore Katniss Everdeen or like Black Widow kind of way where they're just like ultra physical and are just beating up all the bad guys all the time. Not that there's anything wrong with those type of characters, but I think that has become a standard in a lot of YA, especially YA fantasy. And I love those books share a similarity of having their female protagonists still be extremely feminine and their strength is a little bit more quiet, but it's so endearing to me, especially. I'm not going to be able to beat up, you know, a 200-pound man, but the fact that they're clever and sometimes quiet, but always watchful, a little sassy. I love those kind of female protagonists. So I love Guinevere. I loved her female friendships too. I would say that some of the side characters in this book aren't as strong, and sometimes I would get them confused with other side characters. All the main cast I think was awesome, and I thought the ending definitely made my heart flutter. I remember talking to my mom because I was telling her about this book and I had 30 pages left and just being like, I have no idea where this is gonna land. I have no clue. And I think that's also really fun and exciting and a good sign for a retelling. And I think it ended on a very interesting point, and it just made me want to read more from this world. I don't know if there would be a sequel for this book, but I really hope so. All right, this is where we're going to get into spoilers. Before we go, if you haven't read the book and you don't want to listen to that, please make sure to like and comment on this video. Let me know what you are reading, if you have read this book, if you're interested in it, if you have read any other of Kiersten White's books and which ones you would recommend. Leave that down below. I'm throwing up a ton of reading and writing oriented vlogs, as well as IGTV videos on my Instagram. So check those out if you're interested. But spoilers. So really, the main thing that I wanted to mention when it came to the spoilers is the ending. Okay, well first, so Mordred, I liked him right away. He is so up my alley. Everything about him, every time he was on his page, as much as I like Guinevere, I think he was actually my favorite character. And the scene at the end where she's like covered in these like roaches and beetles and brutally murdering that one king with her magic, I was like, that is so sick. I love it. Mordred also betraying her and Arthur took me by surprise, but it was so cool and a good twist. But the thing that just like, oh, my poor little heart. So this gave me major Star Wars The Last Jedi vibes. And I say that because Guinevere and Mordred are on a horse running away, and Guinevere's like, oh, so you want me to side with the evil queen now, with the dark queen? And Mordred's like, no, I just needed to unleash her because she's like a necessary part of the world, but I don't care what she does. I don't care what Arthur does. I think we should start our own thing. And if that is not exactly verbatim, basically what happened between Kylo Ren and Rey towards the end of The Last Jedi, where he holds out his hand and he's just like, I don't care about the light side, I don't care about the dark side, let's start our own thing. Oh, and every time I'm like, do it, do it, do it, do it, do it. Go with him. I think that would be so interesting for the goody-goody two-shoes girl to go with the bad boy, not to partake in necessarily evil activities, but not necessarily to do good things either, just to do their own thing. I think that would be so interesting, and no story wants to do that for me. When Guinevere tricked him and got off the horse and ran away from him, oh, I was so bummed. You know, she's acting like, oh, I'm gonna start things with Arthur, blah, blah, blah. And I actually really liked her relationship with Arthur too. My heart was torn because Arthur is a sweet boy and a good boy, and Mordred is like, fine. I was pulled in very strong directions. I think I would be happy if Guinevere got with either one, but how cool would it be if Mordred came back and still stole her heart? I'm getting excited just thinking about it. Anyway, I love this book. If you have read this book, please mention how you feel about this whole Mordred, King Arthur love triangle situation with Guinevere and how you felt about the ending. Mark it if you are including spoilers down in the comments below. But thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!